Hello, everyone, and welcome to Real Estate Right Now. We talk about real estate matters that matter to you. My name is Jay Izzo, and we are live here from Linda Craft Team Studios here in Raleigh, North Carolina, part of the Greater Research Triangle Park. Today's show is one that we've touched on, but now we're going to get into the nuts and bolts of, and that is purchasing a new home. What should you know when it comes to purchasing a brand new home? Very different than resales. We talk a lot about purchasing resale homes, listing resale homes, but what about when you walk into the sales center of a new home community and you are about ready to make that purchase of a new home? Well, there's a lot more to it than just walking in and saying, I'm going to sign a check and purchase a new home. So what I had to do was I had to have somebody who works a lot with new home buyers, listing expert and buyers expert, Tony Fink with Linda Craft Team Realtors.
Real estate superhero.
Yeah. I asked him not to wear the cape this morning. So by the way, thanks everybody for joining us. Tell your friends, tell them to come on, ask your questions. I already see that a few of you are on right now. Tony, welcome back.
Thank you, Jay. And I always like to come in, and I noticed that you've improved the podcast setup, and I love your new mugs. This is awesome.
Yeah,
I did dress up for you. I always like to make it interesting for you.
I'm interested in the skull and the crossbones.
Well, in life, it's always good to be a captain. It's better to be a pirate. And at the end of the rainbow is the treasure. So we're going to deliver a lot of information today that hopefully leads you to the treasure of a new home with a builder.
And as a Kenny Chesney fan, I have no problem with pirates and water. So, all right. So we're getting that time of year. People are looking at purchasing new homes.
We're in the spring selling season,
and people get excited about a new home, and it's a very different process than purchasing a resale. What are some things? Let's stick with the number one thing. Number one thing out there is people walk into a sales center and there's a sales agent there with the builder, and I think they have this thought process that they're just going to work with that sales agent and get the best deal of the home. Is that necessarily true?
Necessarily true. It is true. It is designed to facilitate that. The analogy I use is walking into a car dealership, right? You don't need someone to help you buy a car.
Right.
But when you walk into a builder's model sales center, yes, you're greeted by typically very knowledgeable people about the community, people that are very pleasant. However, they do have either a financial and legal obligation to represent the builder, not you, the consumer. So I like to use the analogy. Jay and I are similar vintage. I am the first generation of Gen X. I think you're one of the last generations of the baby boomers.
I'm the cusp. I'm right on the cusp. Yeah.
So we kind of transcend.
Yeah.
So that analogy, friends don't let friends do X, Y, or Z.
Yeah, right.
So I would love to leave this conversation with friends don't let friends buy unrepresented. Okay. You want somebody on your side. But yes, it is set up in such a way that you walk into the sales center and it's conducive to you making a purchase decision.
But there's a myth that I want to address here that assumes that if you buy directly through the builder and you're the builder's representative, that you're going to get a better deal.
Yes, but why would you assume that?
Well, I think from the consumer standpoint, they believe that, listen, I'm going to be working directly with the builder. I'm going to be able to get some price cuts. I'm not going to have to pay. If I had somebody else with me, they're going to inflate my prices. They're going to make the prices more. And that house is going to cost me a lot more if I have independent representation like you versus if I just work directly with the builder.
Yeah, that is a common perception, and it's one that's fully understandable as somebody who's a practitioner of real estate, but it's actually just the opposite. When you buy unrepresented, you often wind up spending more and not negotiating the best possible deal. Easy example for that is you don't know what is out there. You don't know what the options are. You don't know what the builder is or isn't willing to do. And then secondarily, you also don't know how and where to spend the money. And with new construction, there's two different versions, right? There is a spec home, which means the builder already spec'd everything out and you just go in and cut a price. Or there's what's called ground up pre-sale, where you actually have to go pick the lot, pick the model, pick the structural options. Do you want to bump out? Do you want a helipad? Whatever it might be. And then you have to go to the design center and figure out where to spend your money on design choices. So it is a little bit of a complex, but I've done a lot of work on it. And a couple things that's really important for consumers to understand, or as I like to think of everybody, future clients, is typically having a buyer agent represent you with a builder does not cost you anything. The builders actually often prefer that you have professional representation. Just kind of makes the process easier.
So one of the things I think that happens in this buying process is, people think that, and yes, there are spec houses out there that you can walk into and, you can purchase the house already built. But if we're starting from the ground, literally the ground up, meaning that, okay, there's going to be a selection process really throughout the entire new home purchasing process, meaning that you could start with the ground, you could start with the house that's already built and add your own nuances to it. You should have representation because, as you and I talked about before the show, I wouldn't want to represent myself in a courtroom.
Exactly.
Right. Because if they have an attorney on the other side, they have all the advantage because they know how the courtroom works. They know what you can and can't do. They know what the possibilities are. I don't know all those things. So to have representation of an independent agent becomes extremely important just to protect me and my interest. But when we're talking from the ground up, right, it's a lot.
It is a lot, and it can be overwhelming.
Yeah. So you have a little acronym, I think.
I do, and I will give props for the builders. The builders have done a really good job of trying to make the decision points that a consumer makes when you go under contract easier, but there's still tons of decisions. So the first decision in my acronym that you asked about is ARC.
ARC.
ARC. So what does ARC stand for? Well, first, Jay, I'm going to put you on the spot. If you had a friend saying they were going to go to a builder to X a house, what are they going to go do?
Buy a house?
Buy, right? Buy is, in my mind, consumption.
Okay.
When you're purchasing a home, you're actually making an investment. So for ARC, what it stands for is first asset. What asset am I choosing? And I'm not trying to make the home purchase process sound too financial or too logical or too quantitative, because it should be a fun, enjoyable experience. But it's serious business.
Yeah.
So am I picking the right floor plan? Am I picking the right lot? What are the benefits of this lot? How is it going to work? And what a lot of consumers don't think about, when you buy a soda, you're buying it to drink. You're not worrying about reselling it.
Right.
Okay. So the ARC in the asset, the first part is making sure that when you purchase something and you make the selection on what asset you're going to buy, that you think about future resale.
Okay. So let's talk about the land piece. So you're representing new home buyer who wants to buy this brand new home, and you're out walking lots. How are you advising them as you're walking that lot? What are you looking for? What are you guiding them? What are you coaching them to do when it comes to looking at a lot?
Yeah, that's great. I mean, the first thing we do is in the consultation, when we first talk about what they're looking for, is understand what's most important for them. Do they care about being on a cul-de-sac? Do they want to be at the front of a community? Do they want to be up against a wooded back area or a protection area? So when we go to begin to segment it, I first will look at the lots with them based on that sort of overlay. But then when you look at a cul-de-sac lot, are you at the end of the cul-de-sac where every car that comes in or every SUV that comes in with their new LED headlights shine into your bedroom or shine into your dining room? Right? Those things that if you haven't bought lots before, you don't really understand. Or do you care about backing up to a dry retention pond? Do you know what a dry retention pond is? Do you want to back up to a water pond, right? A stormwater management. Do you want to be, Tony, I love this lot. I like lot 242 because it's wooded. Jay, that's great. Do you happen to know the property behind it's a farm? Did you notice where the street's stubbed? That street's probably going to go through, and that property in the back may no longer be a farm in the future. Right. So it's those kinds of things. I don't know if that's helping.
Yeah, no, that's helpful. But I think sometimes people will get enamored with it, just like going, I just want a level lot, which I think that's a good thing to think about. But not always is a level lot in the best location.
Correct.
And I think that's where you kind of guide them, is to say, yeah, this is a great lot. I agree with you, but they do have cattle and hogs back there.
Yeah.
Behind the barbed wire fence. I don't know that this level lot may be the best thing for you.
Yeah, and no lots are created equal. So when you go with a builder, one of the things you're not going to understand or really be able to evaluate is what's called a lot premium. Do you know what a lot premium is?
Right.
Okay, well, the builder is going to take the land, convert it, develop it into residential lots, and then sell and build houses on it. But each lot has got a different premium.
Right.
So one might be 25,000, one might be 7,500. So again, when you think about your budget, because one of the biggest things and the easiest things to do for anybody buying new construction ground up, as you described it, is overspending.
And that starts to move into the R.
Right.
Yeah.
So the R stands for return on investment.
Right.
So if I invest money into this thing, into this asset, am I probable to get a good return on that investment?
Yeah. Before we leave this,
keep going.
Before we leave the A here and the asset here, I think one of the other considerations, and I know you do this, is that not all lots are of equal size. And so if it's a custom home, that home may have to be a little bit different simply because the lot's more narrow, or has more width, or whatever it may be. And I think that's a consideration in the asset too, is what do you want your home to kind of look like? Because those things can vary from time to time, right? Depending on the lot. And I think what people may misunderstand out here is when they're purchasing a new home, is that you want to be thinking through every aspect of that lot before you decide to build a home on it.
Yeah, and somebody who works new construction, I've done 4 new construction deals this year. I did 7 last year, right? So new construction is something I'm active in quite frequently.
Right.
So somebody who's a professional on your side can look at that for you and give you a much faster evaluation.
Yeah. Okay, so let's move to the ROI piece, because this is, I think, the second piece, the return on investment piece, that many buyers don't consider, because we're so excited about getting that home. We're thinking of, man, what's this home? This is our dream home. We're going to build our dream home. This is going to be awesome. I want it to have diamond studded cabinets, and I want it to have these quartz floors, and I want it. It's going to be this beautiful mansion that I have in my head, because that's what we do. We go there right away. But having an independent agent like you represent them, right? What should they really be thinking through in terms of return on investment when it comes to putting, when they're wanting to buy this home and put all these other pieces into it?
Yeah. So the first piece, and I'll get to your answer, is know your budget before you start.
Okay.
So you got to stay within your budget. And when you buy with a builder, there's going to be a lot premium. So there's going to be a lot cost with a premium. Okay. Then there's going to be a base building cost for whatever home you're choosing.
Right.
Then you have the opportunity to do what are called structural options on occasion. I want to bump out here. I want a 3rd car garage.
Right.
I want a finished 3rd floor walk-up attic versus a pull-down unfinished.
Right.
And then there's design center.
Yeah.
And design center is all the pretty stuff.
Right.
Okay. So you really have to understand your budget first and stay hard on your budget. The joke used to be that if you're within 30% of your budget, you were right on budget.
Right.
But that, 30% on 600,000,
that's
a lot of money.
That's a lot of money. Yeah.
So that's kind of a joke, but it's a good thing to keep in the back of your mind. When it comes to return on investment, one of the easiest questions that a professional can ask the builder's agent is, what is the normal spend at the design center? Okay. And typically, depending on the type of community, the price point, there's going to be certain ratios. And you could be looking at me going, well, I don't really care what my neighbors spend.
Right.
Yeah, you do.
Yeah.
Because your house might not appraise.
Right.
So you put the diamond studded counters in, you put the quartz floors, you put the helipad on the roof, you put the dock outside, even though it's a dry lot for my yacht, right? When I show up, you might be $100,000 over appraised value.
Right.
Guess what the contract says?
Yeah, it's going to be with the
not my problem.
Not my problem.
It's the buyer's problem.
What about getting the potential buyer to think more futuristically when it comes to return on investment?
Yeah. So what Jay's hinting at there is if and when you're going to sell, and most people do sell at some point. Unfortunately, some people wind up selling much faster than they expect. And that's where this really comes into play, is where is the biggest bang for my money?
Mm-hmm.
So if you're in a community that all the homes that have been sold are 2-car garages, but they offer a 3rd-car garage, is that going to do much for you on resale? Probably not. Okay. Let's say they offer a base kitchen package,
Mm-hmm.
but then they offer a professional kitchen package, stainless, backsplash, quartz tops,
Mm-hmm.
undermount sink. Those things all equate to value, because I do a lot of buyer work, a lot of seller work.
Mm-hmm.
When you're doing a resale, which is when a new construction home is then sold after you buy it,
Right.
those are things that provide value. And then the other thing is looking at square footage and like, would the bump out here really do much for you relative to the cost?
Mm-hmm.
Or what would it do for you? Excuse me. What would it do for you on the resale side?
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know if I'm really answering your question.
I think the thing is you brought up a statistic, and remind everybody, how many years do you need to be in a home for you to start to see some sort of a return on that purchase?
All right. So this is a trade secret, so don't tell anybody. My advice to anybody buying any home is that you have to expect to be in the house 3 years, 36 months, in order to have an expectation that you will not lose money on the sale. And the rationale behind that is a typical transaction cost when you sell a house is going to be around 7% of the price when you sell.
Right.
Okay. Normal appreciation rates nationally are between 2 and 3%. Now in the Triangle area of North Carolina, we're very fortunate because we've had very strong appreciation rates. Year over year, we're flat. Okay. But we've had very strong appreciation rates historically. And before the pandemic, when it went bonkers, and the pandemic was like 5 years ago, almost today.
Right. Yeah.
It's crazy.
Wow.
Our market went up 6%, 6.3% every year for 5 years in a row, 2014 to 2019. Okay. But that's not something you should expect to continue. So long answer to your question. Short answer is you should expect to be there 3 years in order to break even.
Yeah. I think it's I know people don't like it when I say this, but it really is true. Any purchase that we make is an emotional purchase. A home purchase can be extraordinarily emotional. And what happens is, with any emotional purchase that we make, right? If our left brain is not engaged, right, the logical part of ourselves, we can do the things that you just said. We can overspend, right? We don't think about the future. We only start thinking about now. And in our exuberance, right, of doing it becomes irrational. I know, who was it, Greenspan, who said it, irrational exuberance?
Yes.
So there could be a little bit of irrational exuberance even when we purchase this new home, because we're so excited that we're not thinking.
And that's what a professional can do to help you. They can be the voice of reason without being Debbie Downer, right? They can just say, hey, did you consider this?
Right.
Let's use an example of this beautiful table that you have.
Thank you.
Okay. If we go into the design center and let's say this table was the hardwood flooring choices we have, they're going to have level 1 through 5.
Right.
So if I said to you, Jay, and this is what I say to all my clients when we go into the design center, is like, look, let's not look at 4 and 5. Because if I show you 1 through 3, you might see a variation between 3 and 1 in the quality. And what the levels stand for is perceived quality going up. And quality is more of an aesthetic rather than the quality of the material.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
So if I show you 1 through 3, you might see a difference between 3 and 1. You're going to barely see a difference between 3 and 4.
Right.
I mean, excuse me, 2 and 3.
Right.
But if I show you 5 and 1, you're going to go to 5 right away. And then you're going to figure out that 5 is 50% more expensive than 1. Right. So it's kind of keeping it all in perspective. It's like if I take you into an all you can eat buffet, most people jam their plate.
Yeah.
If I take you to an a la carte restaurant and you see the price of everything, you're going to be a little more tactical and discerning in your choices.
Well, you know what you just did to me there with the 1 through 5 thing? You sounded like my optometrist, right? And
Is it clearer this way or this way?
Which is clear? One
or
two, right? And then, okay, how about this, right? They don't get you to 2010. They want you to 2020. Right. And so if you go all the way to 5, right? DEFCON 5 here, you're spending the money, but I don't need to be at 5. I just need to be 2020.
Right. And when you see 5, you can tell 5 is 5.
Right.
But if you didn't know 5 existed, you would have been thrilled with 3.
Right.
So it's sort of just helping people understand the way the system works.
Right.
And obviously builders love when you spend in the design center because they have a markup on everything.
Right.
Okay. And builders make most of their money on the land. They don't make as much money on the house, but they make a lot more money when you go to the design center.
Got it.
So there's things, involved with that whole process.
All right. So we've done the asset.
We did asset. We did a return on investment.
Let's do the C.
So the C is complexity. Okay. And the complexity starts before you even go to a new subdivision. Okay. Which one are you going to go to? Which builder do you want to work with? Right? Builders tend to replicate what each other are doing. So whatever price point you might be, if I'm in the $400,000 to $600,000 price point, and you want to be in southeastern Durham, I can take you and show you Mungo. I can take you and show you Lennar. I can take you and show you DRB. I can take you and show you, there's so many options, right? So the complexity starts there. The next complexity we already talked a little bit about on the asset, which is, okay, if I have a lot of options, what's the best lot for me? Okay. And that's function of budget, function of what's important to you, wants and needs, right? We put needs first, wants second. And then now we sit down and we're like, okay, well, let's talk about structural options. So now we talk about what those costs are going to be. And structural options are, like we talked about earlier, could be enhanced room sizes, screened porch, sunroom, like different choices. Then you get into the design center choices. But the complexity when you go to contract is with a builder, you are under a legally binding contract. You need to know how the contract works. You need to know how the contract's going to work for you or against you should your situation change. Oh, by the way, are you allowed to do inspections?
Great question.
The builder's not going to encourage you to do inspections because most builders, even one-off custom builders, are production oriented.
Right.
They have a start and a desired finish date. They don't book the revenue until they finish. They want to see the thing get finished. Inspections get in the way. Every one of my new home construction ground up is going to do a pre-drywall inspection, which if you're not familiar with that, that's inspecting the home before the drywall's on.
Right.
Hey, I want to know where the pipes are, where this goes, where that goes.
Where the electrical's running. Right.
And we have a professional looking at it to make sure the roof trusses look okay and stuff like that. Now, builders do a great job, but still you want a second set of eyes or a third set of eyes, right? Then you do a full home inspection. Now we got to figure out what happens if the radon levels are high. Okay. If there's a septic system, is the septic system warranted? Do you want to do a septic inspection? Right. That's where a lot of complexity comes in. That is very overwhelming for the average individual because all you really want to do is go in and buy your home.
Right. Yeah. And I think and we talked about it too, but there's complexity in the return on investment piece too, right? Because there is some complexity there because you got to think long-term. You got to think within a budget. Or at least you should. You should be thinking about that resale. You should be thinking about, how is this financially going to impact me? There's a lot of complexity even within the return on investment piece that you may want to consider as well. So the whole process of complexity, what I'm hearing from you is get an independent agent to help take some of the complexity out of the process.
Yeah. And the agent, if they're experienced, first of all, they need to be experienced in new construction.
Sure.
Not all agents deal in new construction. So you want to make sure your agent representing you, your attorney defending you in court is experienced in whatever it is you're dealing with, right? So in this case, construction. So they have to help you understand how the contract's going to work and how that's going to transpire. And then what your rights might be and how things can work. And then there's another level of complexity. The builder's not necessarily going to volunteer that they're offering incentives. They may or may not be offering incentives. But Jay, let's say you walked in and the builder said to you, hey, I'm going to offer you $20,000 in seller paid closing costs on your $600,000 home.
Sounds like a good deal.
Sounds awesome, doesn't it? But you're going to be borrowing 80% of the purchase price, right? You got to get a loan. Right. Oh, and by the way, you're going to work with their lender. No, cool, no problems, right? Do you know that you cannot get more seller paid closing costs than you actually have closing costs? And do you know that the typical ratio for a new home community is 2%? Might be 2.5%. So if I gave you 20 grand to induce you, incentivize you to sign that contract today, Jay.
I'm not going to see all the 20 grand.
No, you're going to lose 8. You're only going to get 2 on 6, which is 12. So that's where complexity comes into play.
Yeah.
And it's hard to say it this way, and I don't mean it derogatorily, but the environment is set up to be conducive for you to say yes and make a decision. Okay.
Right.
And depending on price range, the cost of entry to make that decision is pretty low.
Right.
So I actually met with clients who are not my clients. They were looking to sell their house. They only bought it 2 years ago. Unfortunately, they need to sell it faster than they expected to. They haven't been in there 3 years. And what I did for them is I analyzed, and they had tried selling it by owner with no traction. And I basically looked at the numbers for them, and I showed them on paper every model that had sold in that community. And I showed them where the 6 sales after them were $12 a square foot less, which for this house was over $55,000 less than they had spent. And these are professionals,
right?
Very sweet couple. They got very frustrated and said, I will never buy new construction without an agent again. And I said, just help me understand, how did you start doing this? Because it was not their first home purchase. And they said, well, it was so easy. We just had to put $1,000 down, sign the contract, and then we signed all the paperwork. Then we put our deposit down. And I'm like, there you go.
We've done our time.
Darn.
I know it goes really, really fast. We may have to do a part 2 of this.
Maybe. I don't know. I'll have to check with my scheduler. All right. So I'm going to leave you with 2 things, and then I'm going to leave it to Jay.
Okay.
So friends don't let friends buy unrepresented. Most buyer agents in new construction, if they're very skilled at what they do, are free. They're not going to cost you anything. It's typically going to be paid for by the seller, the builder, and the builders like it. And then always remember, it's an arc.
Yeah, I love that. This has been great. Such great information. Tell people how they can get a hold of you.
Sure. You can email me, tony@lindacraft.com, or you can look me up on social media. I am on all the main platforms. I'm on LinkedIn. I'm on Facebook. I'm on Instagram. But you can always just call me, 919-986-4146. My name's Tony Fink. I've been in real estate an extended period of time. And I love phone calls, even if it's just to be helpful.
Thank you so much, Tony.
Thanks, Jay.
Hey, folks, thanks for joining us. Listen, you had a lot of choices. You chose us. Thank you so much. Give us a positive review wherever you're listening to the show. If you're watching us on DBTV, we are now on Apple TV. So make sure you tune in on Apple TV. We have thousands of viewers that are watching the show. We're on generally Saturday mornings at about 8:30 a.m. on DBTV. That's Roku, Apple TV, all over the place. Let them know that you're enjoying the show, and we'd love to hear from you as well. Give us a thumbs up on YouTube. As I say to you all over the world, you know what that is. Ciao, everybody.